Hey, Bill's here, back in the backyard again. I'm knocking out another 400 shots on birds. Break the boredom. And I think the last video I talked about possibly showing you how to get through hundreds of photos uh, and keep the best. Well, guess what? I'm adding to 2,400, so I'll be somewhere around 3,000. Stay tuned. We'll go through it. I fully believe in suffering while you work. Gotta have an umbrella.
Hi, Bill's back. I know in the last episode I talked to you briefly about how to go through hundreds, if not thousands, of photos and pick the ones that are the best and what to do with the ones you don't want to use, don't want to process, don't want to think about anymore. I delete them. But there's my process, the way I go through it, it seems to be the best for me. I don't know if anybody does it quite the way I do. But let's get started. When I download, I like to bring everything into a single directory under the date. And I think you can see here I organize by year, month, day, and if necessary I add an extra explanation. So for the last several months, I've had about 6 days that I've gone out and I've shot birds just to keep my skills up. I've gone through and copied all of them into the single directory, which I don't recommend doing. I think you should probably address the photos as you take them. But anyway, I've got, let's see, 2,467 photos to go through, and out of that there could be no keepers, 20 keepers, 100, or even 1,000 keepers. I don't think there'll be 1,000, but we're going to find out. And in order to go through all these, I've found a really handy tool. For me, it works better than Adobe Bridge. I use Adobe Bridge, but it's better than Adobe Bridge. It's called Fastone Image Viewer. It sounds pretty simple, but it's actually a pretty complex piece of software. There's a lot of things you can do with it. First thing I like is that you can have everything, all the thumbnails up in one giant directory, one giant screen. So as you go through them, you can see which ones you've addressed and which ones you haven't, if you want to. I like to just change the attribute, the selection attribute on them as I want to keep them. And there's a couple of ways of going through them, which I'll get to in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit more about Fastone and what it can do. It's actually really, really awesome. Under the Edit menu, there's several different ways to select photos. There's a cropping board where you can crop your photos. You can draw on your photos, clone and heal, which I used a few minutes ago, and is actually surprisingly good for free software. I was very pleasantly surprised. I have not needed to remove red eye. You can adjust the colors. You can do border effects, which that's going to take a little bit of practice. They do it by pixel, which means your borders have to be hundreds of pixels wide, and it just takes a few minutes to go through. The framing mask watermark, which the watermark actually might come in handy. I like to watermark in Adobe Lightroom Classic. View, you can change how you look at things. There's an image browser style, thumbnails, details. Yeah, I don't like that at all. I want to be able to see the groups that I'm going in through, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. Tagging. Tagging is where the strength of this software for me is. Once you tag an item, which is basically changing this attribute right here on and off, you can actually turn off everything you've tagged and select the stuff you have not tagged, or vice versa. If you select everything that you have not tagged, you can actually delete it all and clean up a majority of the issues that you have in your selection right away. But first, you have to be sure. Favorites, I'm not worried about favorite folders, slideshow, and all these items right here. I don't really do these things. The tools batch convert, battery name, which is really handy, but I use bridge. Change the timestamp, I would never do that. Lossless rotate, I think Adobe Lightroom Classic does that already. And the compare images P, this is the power. The power that really pays off to use. Settings, language, theme, I've got it set to dark. It's a little bit easier on the eyes, but some people like it the other way. Then you can get into the actual software settings, but I don't really like to go in there very often on any program. The more you customize, the more you have to remember or write down or keep track of for the next version that may or may not hold those changes. So I just try not to customize anything. So let's get down to what I use this for. So we take a look at this, the interface here. You can click on anything you want and highlight it and double click. When you double click, it brings it up to a full screen. When you click one more time, it goes to 100% magnification, or any magnification that you set in the settings. But like I said, I don't change that. When you use the arrow keys, you can work through pretty quickly to see which one of these might make the better selection for processing. Like this one, I'm not sure this works for me. I don't like where the foot is, but there might be some more further down. He's moved his foot here in this one, so I might tap Q to mark this one to look at again a little bit later, or to hold on to and not delete. There's actually another way to do this, which is what I like to do when there's a lot of pictures that are exactly the same, or very close to that, exactly the same. You highlight 4 of them and you press P, and you can compare these 2 up top. I would prefer to keep, because his head is turned a little bit more towards the camera. But just selecting through here and comparing 4 at a time, you can say, well, I like these 2, and out of those 2, his foot is more discernible in this one on the right, so maybe I'll keep this one. And you hit escape and you go back and find you have what? This one marked. Then you compare the next 4. Which one of these? I'm not too sure I really like any of those, even the one I tagged a minute ago. And on and on and on, 4 at a time. I just love this feature. And it comes in even more handy when you have some really tough to see the subtle things. You don't want this, you don't want this. Her head or his head is in full view. Looks like a young robin, might be a young female. And this one is just going to be blurry and it's just not worth keeping, so you might tag this one. But let's go back to option B. That actually works out pretty good for some things. Just click on one, double click, and then you can use the arrow keys, and as you go, you tag the ones by pressing Q that you want to come back to. Oh, so the water's falling off of this one, maybe. That's interesting. Back and forth and back and forth. I might like that one a little bit better. She's got her mouth open here. Okay. She's eating all my crab apples. I had so many crab apples in this tree this year, and almost No cedar waxwings. I think a handful came through a couple times. That was really it. Day 2. Dead of winter, Iowa, right before everything started freezing, I think. And I don't believe there's really any shots in this day that I kept or wanted to keep, but we'll go back through them again. There we go. This isn't too bad. This isn't too bad. Maybe hold on to that one. That's a little better. Here is further in December, day 3. I get kind of picky at times when I'm looking through here. But when you shoot thousands of pictures, sometimes you really need to be picky. And you don't have to keep them all. It's okay to delete. There are days when I shoot for 2 or 3 hours, and I might keep one, I might keep none. Just what's working and what's not working. Anyway, I think you get the idea with what I use for Faststone. I'm going to go through the rest of these images and get back with you a little bit later as I move on to Adobe Bridge, or I might run across something else I need to show you in all of this. I think down in the Eagles that there's some points I'd like to make. But anyway, I'm going to pause this for now and get right back to you in a minute. Okay, I've made it through all 2,464 images, and I have selected or tagged 54 of them so I can revisit them. And now comes the scary part for some people. And this doesn't really bother me much at all. We're going to go up here to the tag, and we're going to select untagged files only. So anything that has a tag is not selected. And then here's the fun part. I am going to delete all of them except those few. No guts, no glory, right? And here is my group, 54. I don't think you saw this one. I kind of like this guy. Oh, well, see, that's not very great. That's a little blurry. But this one, that's going to be good. So I'm going to untag that. And delete that one. Anyway, I thought that you might find it a little bit interesting and all in all, I think I got maybe 2.5 hours and 2,464 images. That's not too bad. Going through it once fairly quickly. A second time a little bit slower in the areas around these that I've tagged, comparing those on either side, just making sure I got the ones that I wanted. Now, I think in the next episode we're going to process a few of these, but not all of them. I might show you them all at the end, or everything that I did keep at the very end. Just remember that it's always better to use something to get through the stuff as fast as possible. Delete what you don't want, or archive what you don't want. Get it away from the stuff that you want to work on. So we'll take another look at this when I move on to Bridge to start the processing process.